Well, I think that went rather well last time. What do you mean? They want me to focus on building more, and about the actual individual block choices. Are you sure? Well, if that's what they want. This is the build, and that is it for us today. Okay, I don't know whatever it is, it's not right on the end crystal. There's no words there, just play it out. What does that mean, play it out? To freestyle it? Alright, go. This is it for us today, and I'll leave you with a... I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live! Bucket! Do it live. I'll build it, and we'll do it live. This sucks. This is the build. That is it for us today, and I'm AOD. Thanks for watching. We'll leave you with a live build video. Take it away. Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. It's me, AOD, and this is my transformation series where I turn my old hardcore world into something beautiful. Last time we transformed my old cobblestone tower into something that actually resembles a ruined tower. But today we're going to be moving on to the beach camp that I had when I first started and spawned in the world. Today we're going to be doing this live, so I'm going to be going over every single block choice I made when designing this camp, and then we're going to be moving into part 2, which is building the Nether portal. So, jumping right into it, we've got this path that leads all the way into the camp. Now, for this we went a pretty basic block choice. We've gone with smooth sandstone slabs as well as smooth sandstone for the borders here. We've also got a tiny bit of birch mixed in here. Now, the thought process with this was we wanted something that looks a bit like it's compressed sand, because this is meant to be a path that's been travelled somewhat frequently, or it's at least well established. So, smooth sandstone creates this texture that looks rather compressed, as well as the fact that it's probably the only block that you can really use to blend between sandstone and sand with a slab. We've got these birch slabs. They could represent driftwood, or they could represent little planks that have been put down. For the path, the other option I was thinking was having smooth sandstone in the center, surrounded by suspicious sand, and then into regular sand. I think that actually creates a nice transition. Issue, of course, if any of you guys are aware, that suspicious sand isn't actually movable, and so, or collectible. So that is the issue with that, although I think it probably looks a lot better than what this does otherwise. But, you know, although this is creative, I wanted it to be available for you guys to also build and get inspiration in your own worlds, and if you're playing in survival, I just really don't think that's very helpful. And this path goes all the way to the bridge here. Next, I think it's important to talk about the grass. And the grass here is obviously a combination of short dry grass and short grass. The idea here is that, you know, we want to blend this area in, and so you can obviously probably do a better job with some of the borders here, but we're actually going to be touching this area later on. So this is just a basic kind of blend that we're going with, and so we want to put a few bits of sand here and there, normally at the ones I go to at least. You have this blending of short grass into the sand, and it kind of eventually fades out until there's nothing really close by the water's edge. In fact, we could probably even get rid of that. But you have these dunes here, and so the dunes normally have some dead bushes and shrubs and other sorts of things. So I thought it'd be good, since this area was already elevated, if we added some grass and shrubs and bushes and dead bushes to this area, and that can help kind of make it feel like it's a bit more connected to the rest of the environment behind it, because I feel like that's always a big issue with different biomes, is the blending between the two. So here we also have the same thing. We have it coming along here, and you'll notice once it drops down to this level, we have the beach with absolutely no bushes at all. In fact, it's rather barren, except for these things, which are strip birch logs, and this is once again meant to represent maybe some driftwood that's come along and got stuck on the beach. Basically just did this for a bit of variation in terms of the plain sand texture and to add a bit more interest to the environment, but you could definitely add a bit more, and we probably will maybe when we touch this area up a bit more. And it's sun setting, so I'll come back when it's day. And starting off with the trench, this is originally a 1 deep layer trench around the whole area, which was my base, which was basically just a huge flat piece of sand. And I'll put it on screen now for you guys to check out. But the idea here is that I wanted to create some sort of fence based on some of the little trapdoors I had around, which was meant to act as a protection area. And so I thought by doing that we could also add some palisades as part of the actual camp here. I wanted to keep a bit of height so this would actually act somewhat defensively. And so the idea of extending the palisades, which were originally just going to be up here where the actual trapdoors were on the original base, I wanted to bring the whole thing down here, and one, makes it look a lot more defensive, but two, it also makes sure that the sand isn't just held up by nothing there. And if I was to dig into the other side this much, it was going to be eating away too much at the space on the beach here. And so I thought it'd be better to just have a retaining wall of palisades protecting the area. Moving on to the palisades proper, we've got these up here, and the important thing to note here is the different block variation, especially when you're putting them next to each other. So you never want to have connected textures. You don't ever want to have two of these next to each other. It just really ruins the effect, and you'll notice that that's actually never happened, I don't think, anywhere along here. I've generally tried to keep any blocks near each other completely different on the same kind of axis. It helps create some breakup of the different textures and help sell the effect of these palisades instead of just looking like one big piece of wood. So we want this to look rather scrappy, because it was meant to be a temporary kind of setup. Logs here are just to block off the water. It's a part of the trench, and you could have probably made a bit of a moat out of here, but I think it would be better to not do that. I just don't think it really fit the vibe that I was going for. And we'll talk about the bridge. I mean, the bridge is kind of basic. It's just some trapdoors, some slabs, and campfires that are extinguished to create this bit of a path that should be a smooth transition between sandstone on both sides. And it's a bit varied, but it's a smooth transition. There's no jumping or anything involved, so I thought that would be the best idea. Moving on to the camp. So the camp is basically the exact same as out here in terms of the path. It's just a smooth sandstone path with some sandstone in, but since this is meant to be a lived-in area a bit more, I've added some sandstone slabs, just plain ones, and you can kind of get this broken rock texture, which kind of just makes it look like perhaps there's a bit more rubbish or something buried in the sand here, and I think it just creates a bit more detail, especially since the sand is such a, and sandstone is such a one-color block. We've also again got these bits of birch sprinkled in, the same idea as before. So starting off with the first build here, we've got a bit of soul sand and nether wart underneath a makeshift shade cloth. Next to it, we've got this enchanting setup here, and this tent here. Starting off with the enchanting table here, this is basically a circular shape around the existing enchanting setup. Got a soul campfire to add a bit of kind of magical looking vibe, as well as all these candles here to make it look a bit more ritualistic. We've got the sand what's meant to represent that the sand has got into the blocks here, and because obviously with the wind and everything, the sand would be blowing and would have built up in places. This is meant to be, lore-wise, it's meant to be similar to what this is here, this tower, but it's obviously ruined a lot more and to represent some sort of summoning circle. I thought these pillars here were a good idea to help sell that idea. I took a lot of inspiration from a few things I saw online, and so this is the design I ended up coming up with. I'll leave a link in the description to the two creators that I borrowed the ideas for the enchanting table and the shade cloth from. If you guys have seen my last video, a bit of glow lichen is just to create a bit of visual guidance at nighttime in particular, to kind of get around to this enchanting area. To the camp here, we've got a pretty simple shade cloth design that I've also edited a tiny bit, and here is some chests and storage. This is originally where I was storing everything as well. I basically just had huge amounts of chests everywhere. I didn't even have barrels, so it was pretty barren looking. I had two furnaces here and a bed around here. I was going to include the bed here, but I think I have a better idea for the bed, which is looking at us right now. So next episode I'm going to be redoing this ship. This is a vanilla ship, but I thought I'd transform it into something a bit more fitting for the base and have our sleeping area in the ship. Moving on to the back here, in particular, you might notice there's a lot more grass in the base. Idea here is basically just to add a bit more variation and a bit more interest to the build. I thought it'd be really good to also add it particularly around the actual buildings. Well, if you're looking at it from this angle, for example, you can see that the sand color is kind of coming up onto the barrels and everything, and I think it helps kind of hide it and blend it in a bit more into the actual environment. Also got these banners hanging down here to make it look like this is kind of a bit scrappy and it's experienced a bit of the weather and has worn itself down a bit. And same with the fences, they're meant to be holding onto the shade cloth as well. So starting off here, we have this design which looks a bit confusing when you're just looking at it here. If any of you guys have played Oblivion, this is meant to be based off the portal to Sheogorath's Realm of Oblivion, the Shivering Isles, and so this was meant to be a kind of concept on that. And so I was kind of playing around with that idea here, and I thought it might be something cool, and obviously this was a work in progress, and eventually I decided I just didn't like the idea that much. I think it was, it's a bit too blocky. There wasn't really can't really do a lot with the netherrack. The next design I came up with was this, which is using the pillar design of the enchanting table. The inspiration for this was from Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. At the top of a mountain you can face Dialga and Palkia, but it didn't quite match up. And I thought it would be a really cool idea to use some coral and maybe add some color to this. And as you can see here, we didn't end up doing that exactly. Now this is our main idea here. We've got a exact same kind of design, it's exactly mirrored, same size and everything like that. I did try and explore with some different sizes for the pillars, but we end up going with this scale still as well. I think it looks fine, especially with these pillars, which is the main thing I wanted to use in this build to connect it to the enchanting table. So if we have a look here, it's pretty simple. It's just stone and tuff, and the majority of it isn't tuff. We actually only have stone at a few places at the top of the pillars here and a few places on the ground. We've also got pale moss carpet and normal pale moss, and the advantages to this were to be able to get some of this moss that was growing on the sides, and this was meant to represent some sort of algae. Furthermore, we've got these designs of coral laid out here, and I thought it'd be a good idea to try and get this coral to go up here, but obviously since this is above ground, it's all going to start dying anyway. So while I love the idea of having some of these colors in here, I thought it'd be a lot more atmospheric if we had only two colors, and those were coming from the nether. Got all this dead coral around, and it's in random patches. I've tried to use every single color here, obviously you can't tell. And in between all of this, we have sprinkled in some twisting vines and fungus, warped fungus, and even some crimson roots, as well as some weeping vines. Yeah. And the idea here is we have the nether portal here, but we also have underneath, we have some ender chests, which also create these nice purple particles. And so the idea is that once this has been raised out of the water, the corruption has slowly come out of the nether and has started growing in between the coral here. And I like the idea that is that perhaps some of the underwater plants have become some of the nether plants, and maybe that's trying to tell a bit of a story. And so that was my concept behind it. The power hanging moss was also used here. It'd be great if we could have some sort of like kelp or something growing, not growing, but like dead on the ground. And I played around with having some just plain grass here as well. I don't think it really looked that good. I think the whole idea of it all being grey really adds some nice contrast to the nether plants that have seemingly taken over. That was the idea. And on top of that, we're going to have some floating islands coming out of the water and maybe have some chains that are linking them that we have to walk through to kind of get here. So perhaps there's some chains going between some of the islands, and the idea is you have to kind of balance over them and get to the different islands that way. Instead of having some sort of water that brings you up, you can use the chains to kind of parkour, or not even parkour, but just walk across. I haven't really built it yet, but we've also got this. This is meant to be the landmass that the floating island is going to be sitting on. The one idea I wanted to play around with as well is, I think the biggest thing to create atmosphere in Minecraft is any sort of movement. And so the idea here is pretty simple: a dripping water like this. And so you can't really see it too well with the shaders that I'm using. But hopefully you can still see, we'll still be able to see some of these droplets. I think that really would help sell the idea of this being raised out of the water. And with the addition of the coral, you can really help get that vibe. And so, yeah, this is what we're going to be building today. And we're going to, I'm not sure how much of it we're going to try and copy one for one, but we're definitely going to try and build that. And we'll see how things go. So I'll probably end up building this whole structure, and we'll come back and talk about it after that. So we're back in the hardcore world, and we can see here we've got this ruined underwater city here. And I think it'd be a good idea to try and link these up, at least somewhat. Like I said, we want the actual main portal here, so it's somewhat close to the base. So I think probably building it here is going to be the best idea, and maybe creating some sort of pathway along to the city underwater, or maybe even some raised up floating islands around here to kind of show that these are connected. And I think the most important thing as well is, since the base of the enchanting table is made out of obsidian, I think it'd be a good idea to try and create an idea that the landmass is floating using it. So perhaps we have a floating island, and on top of the water, the droplets that are going to be coming down. We're going to be having these droplets of crying obsidian coming down as well, which might help sell the effect that it is not just floating for no reason, it's being lifted up by this enchanting table here. And so I'm not sure how we're going to end up putting these around. We might put a few around the base here. We'll see how things go. But we'll build the island, and we'll continue on from there. And so this is how it's looking so far. We're going to moving on to the base now. Here it is. So I'm just going to add some extra bits around the base to try and link them up, including some more floating islands and some other ruins. Now I'll leave you with a small montage of everything I've done. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.